So I think to many of us, the most exciting space in watches is the super affordable end of things, particularly the sub £100 or like sub $120 space. And that's a segment that's becoming increasingly thin on the ground over the last couple of years. So whenever I see a new option that may be viable for under that price, I always bite the bullet so I can take a look at it. And that's exactly what we've got here. This is a new watch from Parnis, the Chinese brand. And despite the unusual name, this one looks really, really good, as well as being, really cheap. So you'll find an affiliate link to this watch in the video description if you do want to check it out for yourself. This one's currently priced on AliExpress at £105, but there's a coupon for £9 off. Although I bought it for even less again when I purchased it. It was about £91. Yeah, let's whip it open and see if maybe it's worth that amount of money. How odd, the guarantee card actually has a credit card style number baked into it. That's been punched through from the back there. Not sure I've ever seen that before, even though the rest isn't filled in at all, surprisingly. But yeah, apparently 1 year warranty anyway on these. And the packaging is a little bit more substantial than it used to be. You used to literally get the watch like this, wrapped in polystyrene. But with that out of the way, you can already see some potential there through the film. And I wonder if the straps are still as good, because the last time I took a look at Parnis was some time ago, actually. And this is a really odd strap. What on earth is this? So we'll get to the head of the watch in a minute, but I couldn't help but notice that we have this two-sided strap, essentially. So the surface of this looks like any old Croc Effect band, doesn't it? It almost looks like a leather Croc Effect band, either leather or pleather. But then on the underside, well, it's neither. It's got a silicone underside to it. So, yeah, very, very odd. Almost looks like a tire track effect, which I guess functionally may be pretty good. Just is very bizarre combination. Never, ever seen that before. Yeah, Parnis are pretty inventive when it comes to their straps, or at least pretty good when it comes to straps in general. The only frustration for me is they use these really clunky buckles, as you can see, that often go completely against the style of the watch. And that is the case again here, because what I've bought is a dress watch. I don't really find myself wearing dress watches all that often. Well, this was an undeniably pretty watch and kind of like a vintage inspired one. Now, for full transparency, no clue on whether this is an original design or not. It's clearly inspired by some designs from the middle 20th century or earlier, but just due to there being so many of those, it's pretty much impossible for me to know. It does look a little bit like some models I've seen before, but I couldn't think of an exact model it was a clone of or anything, so I figured it was still worth pulling the trigger. Parnis do have one or two more original designs already in their repertoire, and yeah, definitely is a very good looking watch. For this amount of money too, surprisingly detailed, maybe more so than it looks directly here on camera. A lot of gold accents on this one, and if I get up close you'll see we actually have two engraved rings around the edge there, which look quite good. In recent years I've really been coming around to these syringe style hands. I think they tend to look aesthetically really nice on dress watches. Now let's get to those specifications, because they're always a slight concern when you're spending this a little, and the main concern is often case material. Now it does say here stainless steel, and here's a look at the case. You'll see very simplistic finishing overall. It's all just this glossy finish. Now, the polishing on the bezel actually is very good. That's very neat on the bezel, but the main case is much more rudimentary, but not necessarily ugly. As for what material it is, this one's a little hard to tell. I think maybe it is stainless steel. I'm just not convinced it's 316L. Does it say anywhere specifically? On the main description, it literally just says stainless steel, and it's not listed anywhere else. That leads me to believe maybe it's 304 steel instead, which is a slightly cheaper grade of stainless steel that watch brands tend to use if they want to use steel but are on a tighter budget, and that's the sort of steel you'll see used by the likes of Vostok, for example. It's actually still a pretty competent material. It's not like a downgrade to brass or anything. I don't think this is chromed brass. It certainly feels slightly cold to the touch, which is assuring, but I just get the impression that it is. I'm not sure whether it's a tone of the metal slightly. This stuff, if it is 304 steel, has a slightly different chemical makeup than 316L, but there are some things we can verify from looking directly at them here, that being the movement. And this is apparently a Seiko NH35A. Now, in recent times, fewer and fewer brands have been using these, mainly because there's like a worldwide movement shortage, and I have seen that some Chinese brands are basically making their own clones now of these movements. But this one explicitly does say Seiko NH35. Certainly looks exactly like one. I think this is maybe a Hattori branded one with the S2 there. So all in all, very good movement for a watch at this price these days, especially based on current market rates for movements. Not the thinnest movement in the world, like many entry-level automatics, but I won't say it's too bad on that front. I think some of that comes from that raised crystal, which we'll get to. And it's actually got what looks to be a screw back too, using these unusual circular notches. You don't see them all too often. But apparently they secure this watch to a 580M rating, and there's a there's a cute little whale here as well, whale symbol next to the 580M. Not sure you'd be quite reaching those sort of depths. They're also claiming here that this crystal is a sapphire crystal, and a domed one at that. If anything, actually, it's essentially a boxed style crystal here, so it comes predominantly up at the edges and then it's flat across the top. And as for anti-reflective coating, not really sure we've got any. Ironically, it's still not the haziest I've seen, but it's not nearly as clear as if this were hardened mineral crystal, for example. It's like the trade-off that you make. There we go, just move that date wheel forward. It is aligned properly. It was just approaching 12. We've even got some applied markers there, and yeah, proportionally, I think it looks pretty good. I think the text is a bit unusual. Obviously, you got the word Barnet on the dial, but we've also got this somewhat futuristic font here at the bottom center. Not sure that quite fits, but at least it's rather small. Now, this watch does come in a couple of other variants and colours. Now, most of those are far less interesting to me. They use like a more contemporary handset. Just leaves the watch looking a bit Rolex Datejust-like. Whereas this one with this syringe handset, I think, is the more intriguing of the two. This one also comes in like a beige version, it seems to be, on their site. They're also claiming 39.5mm. Let's see if that's true. And that would make it maybe a little bit on the larger side for a watch of this style. And yeah, that is exactly 39.5mm across. Lug to lug on this one, 46.89. And thickness, if you include that raised crystal, 12.3 if you're excluding it. So how it kind of feels on wrist, more like 11.1. Not the thinnest, but also not the thickest. And I've got a bit of a smirk on my face here because I've got to admit it's very peculiar, this strap, but I can't deny its comfort. It's a very nice feeling on the wrist, this strap, so maybe they're onto something here. Now, I've got a 6¼ inch wrist. I'm on the penultimate hole here, so quite a good size range there with the holes, considering this watch is maybe a tad too large for my arm. But in general, the watch really does look like it looks in the pictures. It wasn't clickbait. This watch is pretty attractive, and these days a lot cheaper than many of the most popular dress watches. There's a look at the slimness, not too bad. Nevertheless, for my arm, probably a touch too long and big for me. Still a good size for a lot of people, even if not period appropriate to that aesthetic. And also rather simplistic dial finish on this one. No crazy textures or sunbursts or anything. Certainly not bad as a cheap dress watch option though. I think as is often the case with the watches that kind of cherry-picked a feature on this channel, this one does outperform its price tag. Definitely doesn't look like a 90 quid watch, even if it's got that very shiny case. Now I really want to check that crystal because the main culprits for exaggerating specifications do tend to be these Chinese brands. So when I press on this crystal using my magic pen here, we're looking for this needle on my gem tester to fly up into the section that literally says sapphire on it. And if not, then, well, they were lying. No, yep, definitely is a sapphire crystal, so you do even get that rather high-end material at this budget price. And actually, I was thinking to myself, the price on this one, that didn't include discount codes either, so yeah, I forgot to use them. Darn it. You could probably get a chunk further off than I did at checkout, so you can get this watch probably even cheaper. Now, I can't see this performing well at all in low light. We really don't have much luminescence there whatsoever. And yeah, it just looks like we have the hands here with the UV torch. From memory, Parnis have never been particularly strong in this department. And yeah, that is pretty pathetic low-light performance. Don't expect to see this one after a few minutes. Yeah, I think that's already gone entirely, yeah. That's how you know it's more of a spec sheet inclusion, as I call them, rather than anything of practical benefit. So that's a quick first look at this new budget Parnis dress watch. Codename on this one, by the way, they're always a bit hard to find. There's a little bit of that Art Deco vibe about it, this one. Does it say on the back? PA6098, so that's what you're looking for. First impressions are quite good. Now, in general these days, I'd probably recommend spending a little bit more than this on a mechanical watch especially. You'll just get a much more well-rounded package. Not sure this is quite the sweet spot for automatics, even if it might be for your quartz watches where they can then use the money saved on the movement to put into other areas. Either way, if you want to take a look at this watch for yourself, you'll find a link to it below, as well as any discount codes that I've currently got active on AliExpress, because chances are you might be able to grab this for closer to 80 quid, at which point some of these nitpicks that I've got about this watch, well, they're much easier to overlook.